Hey guys, how are you? Nice little burn up the hill here. Join me. Oh, it's the machine. We've climbed up the hills and I've got a nice view to show you. That's my weekend bike ride. I'm going to show you where we're going to have a chat. I've got some interesting topics to talk to you about. And that over there in glass is actually an elevator shaft, but this is the view. Dry, warm and balmy. It's a difficult sell, CV19 in this area. The flu plug. This is not flu country. There's not enough moisture. Anyway, what am I going to talk to you about today? Let's get on with it while we enjoy the view. So, the China dump anti-dollar milkshake theory, the inverted dollar milkshake theory, the China dump version, the pro-commodity dollar inverted shake theory, whatever you want. I'm going to talk to you about something potentially opposite to the dollar milkshake theory, and it's a bit opportunistic. I feel a bit bad about doing it because the dollar's been a bit benign. I actually think there's a chance it bottoms out and it regains a little bit of strength, but I always like to test theories and say, what if it does something completely the opposite to what you're expecting it to do? So maybe this is, if you're positioned as Brent Johnson is probably positioned, this is kind of, I suppose, your nightmare events. And I want to talk about that possibility. So, China, America, all getting a bit hot, but at the moment it's all about the election. I left my selfie stick behind, so forgive me, I'm going to be changing hands here and getting a bit tired. But I want you to enjoy the view of the heights, and you can, maybe next time I'll get the GoPro on and share the ride up with as well, but I don't know if it'll make for a vlog because the engine's a bit throaty. I'll need the mic on here, but anyway, so let's get on with it. There's an escalation going on between America and China. This has been brewing for a long time. Just realized I've left the keys in there. What happens if China starts dumping dollars, which many think it may already have begun? There was a Zero Hedge article that I'm referring to as part and parcel to this, and dovetails into this discussion. And it says the following, basically: reduce your reading by one article to a synopsis that you can watch on YouTube. You're welcome to, by the way, hit the settings button and make it 1.2 so that it can go a bit faster. Some people get intimidated by the time of my videos. You'll usually get something right the way through, and I'll remember the best bits at the end. So if you can hang on, it's worth it. But I have no problem with you listening faster. So what happens if they dump treasuries, but they need to get out of them? So they're not going to be interested in an absolute dump unless it's war. If it's war and it's like, hey, you're coming militarily and threatening me, I'll do anything that's absolutely destructive to you, even if it's costing me money. That could be an out-and-out dump on the market. And then the only buyer, let's be frank, the only buyer for over $1 trillion in government debt, for all those surpluses China's been running and all those deficits America's been running, aka the entire thesis of Walmart and many other low-cost providers in America that actually kept, during the Greenspan era, the inflation rate down, because you had the globalization benefits where you didn't have to pay American workers, you could pay workers on a much lower annual rate to build, make, grow all the things that you were building and making in your own country. They're only doing it cheaper because they had a much lower living cost. So there was arbitrage during globalization that gave a period of particularly low inflation benefit, which was why we had the Goldilocks economy, where Greenspan was continually saying, well, there's no inflation, and he kept rates way too low, which just led to debt bubble after debt bubble. And as I say, he's an absolute little criminal, and he deserves to be dragged into The Hague and beaten to a pulp and then thrown to the dogs. But let's just park all my vicious vendettas to one side, and let's just discuss this. So when you start rehoming that legacy production done for you in China, now in America, because you're refusing to deal with these people that you no longer have a working relationship with, that you hate, that you want to stop spending and giving money to, and that every time you buying more goods, they're making more money, and you're thinking you're feeding a monster that's going to come and bite you, and you decide to reverse that process, well, then you get a corollary event where the much higher costs of US labor to build, make, and do those things have to be re-onboarded, and you forego the much lower costs. In other words, tariffs are there to build the difference up between the costs of importing something that's cheaper to the cost that it would be delivered to domestically if you want to reduce your deficit. And you're on the Triffin dilemma element again, which is, as the stage one is you get this immense benefit where you get to run deficits and your currency stays disproportionately strong, and you're just pumping out dollars and creating them, and everybody just keeps absorbing them and it stays strong because you're a net buyer of everybody's stuff and you're just wolfing. In previous YouTubes in the golden era many years ago, I think it's 3 or 4 years ago, depends how long you've been following my channel, I've been running since 2008-9. I used to talk about the fat American that lay in the beach deck chairs and ordered burgers, toys, samis, outfits, and there were the Japanese, the Chinese running around getting all these things, and he just kept saying, put it on my tab, put it on my tab. And he just ate, drank, was served, put it on my tab because I'm good for it, put it on my tab because I'm good for it. I'm the biggest muscle, biggest military force, biggest everything else. So what happens eventually when you have these Triffin dilemma stage 2 or 3s, the end game of Triffin dilemma, is some people start to lose confidence. And where's China? Where is China that's now seeing America calling it out, going to invest? Where's it going to put the dollars that it harvests and gives back to the Fed? Because the Fed's going to probably be the only buyer. And I'm going to come back to that, and there's plenty more to be said. If they start divesting out of their trillion that they're holding, at what point does this become a problem? Well, it becomes immediately a problem. And where will they divest to? Commodities. So China's saying, we're going to be making our stuff. China's a net importer of commodities and turns out finished goods. So they're essentially the manufacturer of last resort. They're a big workshop, but they actually don't grow so much. They don't have so much oil and gas. They don't have much, they actually import soya bean and quite a bit of their food, etc., etc. And then copper, because copper is the industrial metal that you make everything with. It's in this concrete building right here that I'm in. And when I'm waiting for my frappe, it'll eventually come out of there. There's copper in the wiring, there's copper in the lights, there's copper in that elevator shaft, there's copper everywhere. Wire and wire for kingdom to come. Obviously there's steel and there's mortar and various other things. China's long gone been moving on cornering the rare earth minerals. In fact, so much so that we're getting ridiculous articles about NASA going to the fucking moon, excuse my French, to mine rare earth minerals. Really, every time you hear clowns like this, it reminds me of the Winklevoss twins talking about comets stuffed with gold. This is the story of 4-year-old fantasy and ignoramus IQ levels. Good luck with capturing that comet, burning at 3,000 degrees C, jumping on it in your quadruple trillion layers of asbestos suits and digging a hole in the ground. Good luck with the cost in terms of how you get there and everything else. It's same for the moon. If we ever went there once, why have we never gone twice? These are all fantasist stories for people to tell in the pub to make their mates laugh. So let's be frank. Anything that isn't on this planet, the cost of recoupment is disproportionately, absolutely a non-starter. Absolutely a non-starter. You're not going to land a spaceship and throw huge freight carriers back at Earth full of rare earth minerals that are going to parachute into the sea just off the shore of your borders. Forget anybody who tells you that. Forget the Elon bullshit malarkey about going to Mars and going everywhere. There's a lot of absolute utter horseshit. When you can build a car that doesn't prang into another car, and the actual the driverless cars actually work, you can start talking about whether you can actually ever get something that'll navigate to a burning piece of rock, for which it is utterly uninhabitable, and to live there would be like locked up in a little bubble of asbestos where you'd stare out the window at a continual furnace. So let's stop talking shit about things that we've never even visited as well. There's a lot of that baloney. Just park it. It's just utter baloney. But anyway, so they're going to buy commodities. They've got rare earth minerals that they've been hoarding and recognized as a shortage. Remember, this goes into lithium, batteries, everything's going flipping batteries. So a couple of things just on the everyday, looking to potentially replace a car for someone, and they don't make that model unless it's E. It's an E model. They won't do in certain places. This isn't consistently the case, but they won't do that model anymore unless you're buying the E version, and it's got this very modern futuristic look, and it's a plug and go electric car. So there are things that are changing, and the manufacturers will drive that change. They are going to just deny you the opportunity to buy a turbo diesel because it's dirty and it smells, and its Greta is upset with you. So you're going to be forced along the adoption chain by virtue of choice. And these things are going to come thick and fast. You won't turn an oil tanker around in 2 minutes, but they do turn. They do turn. And it might take 60 nautical kilometers to do it in. If you're going at a pretty fast whack and you have to suddenly go in 180 degrees in the opposite direction, you probably do it in less, but you know what I mean. But they do turn in the end of the day, and things move, and you take your eye off it and suddenly it's gone. You can watch a snail moving, and then you can look the other way, and his next thing you know, he's gone 100 yards down the road after, you're just sitting having a meal for half an hour. So things do move even when they're moving slowly, and these choices, you are being boxed out. So we're going battery. Everybody should have realized we're going battery. Rare earth minerals, most of the rest of the world don't have enough. China has been stockpiling. China plays the long game, and they're going to be doing this on commodities now. Copper's been quite strong. Palladium has been very firm on our side. And of course, the monetary metals, all roads, either way, go back to gold. In actual fact, this scenario, the spilt milkshake, the Hunt spilt milkshake theory, or the Chinese milkshake, whatever we decide, if we're putting it forward, is not a comfortable one for the dollar and actually sees dollar loss. Now, outside of my Turkish lira trade, which is going great because the Turks are so hopelessly bad, I have also been watching the rand against the dollar. I've been watching a few other things, and actually the dollar hasn't been doing that great. If you look at the dollar against the Korean won, this is one of our big one day when you come macro trades. It's a monthly chart. It's huge. I'm not saying it won't happen and that the dollar doesn't come around and do that, but it's actually spilling on that. So we have to keep our options and our mindsets open for what potentially should or could be coming. So let's take the sunglasses off. So in that sense, if that's to happen, we're more on the Peter Schiff argument that there's just too much proliferation and China dumps. Now, China is working its way out. Their goal is to get to 800 billion. Now, a professor of a prominent university was featured on the front page of their equivalent of the Financial Times. If you read the Zero Hedge article, and it's largely understood, he would never make such an outlandish statement and be featured on the front page if this was not a government-approved message that they will be trimming their USD debt-based holdings. Why are they supporting somebody else's Ponzi scheme who's calling them out all the time? To be honest, if you were a Chinese government and a Chinaman yourself, you'd say, screw these guys. We make everything they buy, and their currency has been artificially held up by us buying and holding their debts. Now, I want to highlight and add to that, outside of treasuries, there are other investments that China has inside, stock market related and other asset types. So actually, the total number is bigger than $1 trillion. It's significantly bigger than $1 trillion. And here's where the problem becomes a problem. Such a big guy deciding to make a move has a knock-on effect on other people who also hold that asset, who don't want to be bag holders. So you're France and you're holding US debt, you're Britain and you're holding US debt, you're Saudi Arabia sitting with a ton of debt, that mystery Belgium buyer, yeah, I wonder who that is, if that isn't the Fed self-monetizing through all their hidden Ponzi foundations, companies and blind trusts, etc., yada yada, that you can't have but they have plenty of. So that Benelux area, Britain's stuffed with quite a bit of US debt. In fact, there's a lot of first world nations. They all get wind of this, and it's like, mate, how close a buddy am I to eat red on this portfolio of stuff I've got of yours when you've upset the biggest guy in the room and he's pissing off and he's doing a consistent, steady distribution of your shitty treasuries. And then it becomes the Fed self-monetization game. And as I've already said, the purveyors, the insiders, the banker cartel, the usual types, the BlackRock, the Finks of BlackRock, we all know who they are and what kind of actors and what kind of scheme they are gaming on, and all the government officials that are owned by these same blackmail running CIA, Mossad, Satanists. The key thing about these guys is that they want to burn out America. They want to see it fail. They're here to suck it, because this is what parasites do. They find a nice, fat, healthy calf where they can suck blood, and then they suck blood and push their poison in there until it's a sickly thing that dies, and they move on. They move on to their goal. They are there to destroy your society. They are Trojan viruses. Ergo Bill Gates, antiviruses, software, all of this. The entire system is like your brain, your brain CPU, etc., etc. In fact, do watch Corbett's channel. He was talking about this whole cloud phenomenon and storing your stuff and your content. By the way, have hard drives, save it on your own hard drive. The cloud is somebody else's fucking computer. That's all. It's a server. And that was Corbett's message, maybe a little bit more tactfully put, but it's a server. It's a server in the sky that they're renting to you so that they can get subscriptionized income, because stock markets appreciate more and push stock market prices much higher for subscription income than you having to make a sale from zero at the beginning of every month. And that's why software from Microsoft and everything else you can no longer buy, only rent in the freaking cloud. Oh, so you can have access to it every day. No, so we can have more money. So we can have more money, and we can have rental usury extraction out of you for that. Guess what? It's time to save anything valuable on a hard drive. That's all it's being hosted on. Many mega server farms that you don't own, that could be switched off. It's basically the CIA's data farm that they're running bots through every now and then to see if you've said something, you've saved something of interest. They're scanning it non-stop. You are saving your shit when you use cloud. I've gone on a sidebar here. I'll come back, I promise. On the military-industrial complex. Amazon is the host for the military-industrial complex. Microsoft just secured a big contract as well. They're passing it around to their corporatocracy elite that are run by the same operatives that are essentially Mossad, CIA, mega corp, CEO, foundation pricks. And they don't respect you. You absolutely are the mark, and they will give license to them to scan, run bots, algos on anything interesting, any danger words or anything you have. Save your stuff, anything of value, documents, pictures, images on hard drives. Do away with these freaking cloud services. Any YouTubes that I put out that you want to have saved, that's useful information, download them. Don't put them up on YouTube. They're mine. I have a YouTube channel, but download them and save them and rewatch them. Anybody else's that you watch, do that, because these AWSs of the world, these clouds of the world, and these YouTube channels, here today, gone tomorrow. Don't like your message. Sorry, goodbye. Anyway, back to China dumping. China decides, look, it's not out and out war, but you're not talking very nicely to me. I'm distributing consistently. And the dollar got a little whoopsie wake up. When I look at that sell-off on the dollar index, came down hard. Yes, the euro got some benefit, but when I look at the won and some of the Asians, wow, the renminbi got some benefit. Now, that's not to tell you that the renminbi is going to replace the dollar. It isn't. I don't think, and I never have thought it will. And I don't think Western people will be that comfortable with it. This is not me pivoting between two nations. I think we end up with a global new world order, which has a Bretton Woods Mark II moment, which is part of Rockefeller's key masturbation orgasmic event, where they introduce their basket of goods. And I think they may even, for the libertarians, throw in a bit of gold in there for faith, because they're going to put a lot of broken currencies in there after a reset and debt jubilee, which will be a clean the slate event, which means a lot of assets are going to go, like your pension, that's stuffed with that stuff, and in replacement you'll be sold a shitty UBI, which they'll undervalue the tokens in which they pay with on a new proliferation game. So that's how they're going to steal from you. And we're watching the retail banks, negative interest rates. I did a live stream. Negative interest rates are going to kill in European banks. The European banks have fallen. Barclays has let go of the £1 handle, and it is now a penny stock. Barclays Bank is a penny stock. Hear me now. You think these things aren't happening. People ask, when's reset happening? HSBC, you should see how that thing has been throwing down. Look at that on a monthly chart. Let me tell you, retail banking will be sacrificed. Do not hold too big a bank balance in your retail banks. Get it into stablecoin and tether substitutes. I've said this before and I will say it again. Hear me now. Important bullet point. Write this down. Your money in a true USD or stablecoin alternative in a private wallet is safer in a stablecoin than it is in fiat in a bank. Bail-in risks are high. Your deposit guarantees are worthless on a systemic bank failure. They might cover, if one small bank where everyone contributed, the balances of the bank accounts of that small bank. The systemic failure of the entire banking system will not be covered by any deposit guarantee. Your government will give you shitcoin token that they'll have created and proliferate it away and run it down to a very low value, kind of like when the Bitfinex had its hack, and you'll end up selling it out for next to nothing. You will have lost the bulk of your money. You'll be shafted. There are going to be a lot of angry, a lot of disappointed people with this turning of the tide. Let me tell you, there's going to be a lot of rioters, and there's martial law. Right now, you are in a health-induced martial law. In Australia, what's happening? The amount of South Africans that just tried to escape to freedom away from an Africanization of South Africa that are in Australia right now and are now getting squeezed. Victoria State, what a shame. Arresting people for not having a mask on and all sorts of absolute draconian stuff. You see, you're a 5 million population. You're not big enough. You're not organized enough. They can test bed their absolute draconian martial law. You're just under the communist China right there, and they're going to give you a little taste of yellow fever, and boy, are you going to feel it. I tell you what, it's time for Australians to push back. It's time for those that don't want to be in Australia to retreat to a bigger country and decide to hold a line somewhere, because these guys are coming for you. It's martial law. The government has declared goddamn war on you. When are you going to wake up and realize? When someone's come to kill you, the sooner you freaking wake up and realize it, the better chance you have of surviving. These guys have come to take your freedom, squeeze you into an ever tighter wedge of ever growing compliance. You've got to stop them early, because once you've accepted 10 yeses, you're never going to say no. Well, we've gone this far. We've gone along with them this far. They will keep squeezing you into that corner. Push back time. Push back time. Serious push back time. Get independent, get wealthy, get armed, and be prepared to make a stand with others. Get connected. They were arresting in Australia COVID-19 conspiracy theorists. Call me a CV-19 conspiracy theorist. I don't believe half of what I'm hearing, if I believe any of it. There's been nothing but an utter scam perpetuated to bring about a martial law over the citizenry of this planet. The control structures of the globe which they all are working together. They might thin the herd, or the Chinese herd and the American herd, with a nice big ass war and try suck some Western nations, and we've all got to do our bit and suck your chest in and go fight. Don't fall for any of that. There might be a bit of a herd thinning in a war. It's often how the end of triff and privilege ends, a global war, where the last thing you have left is your bigger military, and you think you can reassert yourself when financially your bank account is empty and overdrawn. You try fight your way out the pub when they ask you to pay your tab, and that's kind of where America is getting, and it's not going to end well. It's not going to end well for any side. It's never a winner. And of course it will create inflation, and it will cause the reset that Paul Krugman is so excited with glee for. And as an Ashkenazi, he can't wait for the bloodbath, because they're vampires that will spill out of that. And they just love that thinning of the herd. By the way, that judge that died, Ginsburg, she was pushing for 12-year-olds to be of age for sexual interaction. It's funny that, isn't it always the imports of immigrants into other countries, not their own precious Israel, and very low age sexual consent for minors, all seem to be the same flipping tribe, the same tribe of psychopaths. This is what you've got to deal with. They want the right to bash and bang and cajole, rape children. They want the right to exploit you and put you on the wrong end of a compound interest equation. They want the right to go import non-indigenous people until the murder rate is through the roof for the indigenous locals. You look at Europeans, what's going on in Sweden. Sweden just didn't have rape issues. Now they're one of the rape capitals of Europe. And this is the game. So they've declared war on you. They've declared war on one of the smallest mega populations. And I suppose we're all white nationalists now, and to my black, brown, and people of color and Latino followers, this is not isolating you out. They're coming for you. They will take their time. They pick off their biggest threat, and then they move on. These people are not your friends. You might think, good, nice to see the heat up your ass, Whitey, and all of that, and now you can all become white nationalists. You're a Nazi. I'm afraid no. Anyway, back to China. China starts this unloading its treasuries. You might get a spilt milkshake effect, because what happens is the other countries say, why am I standing too? Britain, the special relationship, which is just the fact that the dark state swap lines between MI5, MI6, the CIA and the Mossad, because they are actually your real governors in chief, managing the herd, assassinating at will. As they release a new James Bond, what heroes the spies are. Meanwhile, they geeks, hackers, wimps, little pussies who plot poison and murder from afar with high-tech weapons. They're not all action James Bond, Daniel Craig, stuntman, opening sequence, rah, 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 for the good guys. Let me tell you that. So you've been sold more fantasies than you know what to deal with here in this world. And the whole game is unlearning every piece of bullshit you've been fed. And I can tell you this much, that in this scenario, a lot of countries would start to front run and start unloading. Let me tell you, the Fed then becomes the biggest ass buyer of dollar denominated debt. And instead of it being an asset that other countries are portfolioing, everyone just keeps working minimums. Just like I'm saying to you guys, keep working minimums in your banks. It's time to run. The banks are hitting the man peas off the roof moment in Europe and across the world. Branch closures across South Africa, across Europe, everywhere, winding down their fixed cost. These guys are knowing it's end of times for them. Many of them may not and will not survive, and I'm talking about retail banking, but the other forms will also come into some form of pressure. So, it's really coming thick and fast, guys. Reset is here. Reset is here, and I keep moaning about everyone stealing our logo, as I did the previous on the live stream. The power button of the computer, we chose that 6-7 years ago. And we spoke of reset, and reset wasn't a very commonly used word. And now the World Economic Forum, our friend Klaus, the little real Nazi, who's working with all the Bilderberg group, the Masons, and all the rest of the dark control structuring secret society, sheep managing farm bots that all are deciding how many of you to cull and which one goes. Let me tell you, Hunger Games society is not that far away, and I'm afraid to say I've got a divergent tag as big as a flipping inverted pyramid on my head, just by sitting here and telling you all my views and opinions, and they won't befriend me much. And I think you all need to start planning, because the likes of me won't exist in 10 years' time. If I'm still alive, I'll be hiding out in a cave in a mountain eating barbecued rats, because that's where this flipping game is going. That is literally where this game is going. This is such a chronic escalation of martial fucking law over the whole goddamn fucking world that you can't move. You must cover your mouth and face like a fucking slave, which actually induces variety of diseases, including skin ailments, spots. This is called the triangle of danger, from the tip of your nose to the apex of your mouth on either side. And in fact, there's certain diseases. I had one as a child for touching dirty things, rummaging around like a little brat in the felt and picking up toilet brushes and bringing them home to show mom. Let me tell you, you get a real infections in this in the expelling and nasal area, and putting devices over you, putting nappies over your face is the worst thing. I've shared pictures of kids with the rashes that come underneath that, and you actually shouldn't even squeeze spots in that area. It releases, it's actually a different dynamic. This is your Bermuda Triangle for your nasal breathing and expelling apparatus of your body, and it should be unimpeded, absolutely unimpeded. And this is what they're doing. They're using forced arrest of non-compliance for things like masks in public. You do not understand how far we have come and how huge an escalation that is. I love the little tractor. These tractors, I promise you, they're about this high. I don't know what kind of farm you run on that little tractor, but there must be a 250cc motor or something in there. Anyway, so I'm having a good old freaking rant, but the war's been declared, friends. The war's been declared. The war has been declared. Time to own and control your own stuff. Forget the cloud malarkey. Get your money out of these goddamn banks. They're going insolvent. They've changed their terms and conditions, many of them, to allow for bail-ins. This happened post the Cyprus events. Cyprus was your warning. You only get a few warnings. You can ignore the signs at your peril. If you aren't in crypto now, you're asleep. Get your goddamn cash out of the bank in a stable coin. Hear me now. Get it into at least the blockchain. Think about privacy. I do still think the privacy coins, like Monero, even though they're advertising, oh, if we can find someone to hack Monero, it worries me that, because that probably means they've done it already and they're trying to advertise for Monero. But you want to make things as difficult for people. That's not because you've done something wrong and you've got anything to hide. I ain't done anything wrong and I haven't got anything to hide. But you're a person of interest for watching this video alone to them. They have tagged you, they've listed you, you are consuming materials that doesn't buy the narrative of the controlling architectural. You are living in a 3, 5, 6-dimensional chess game where you told you're a born free human. And I'm here telling you that you're being slave managed in a loosely based freedom that's going to escalate and ratchet up ever tighter. And if these guys if China starts to distribute dollars and the dollar keeps being weak for a sustained period, and other major nations and megacorps start to have that, and people start to look a little harder at some of the tech, and they will graduate and move some of that tech and relist it. Watch predictions, relisting of certain tech companies in Tel Aviv. Hear me now. You're going to start to get dual listings. They're going to walk that money over, boy, back to the Greater Israel Project, the Great